Descent into Darkness. The restaurant was called Very Very. It was an odd name, and stranger still was its location. A secluded spot on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by a dense, eerie forest. Yet, it was renowned for its exquisite cuisine and mysterious ambience. People came from far and wide, drawn by its allure and the promise of a culinary experience unlike any other. I was one such person. Intrigued by the tales and the mystique, I decided to visit Very Very. The drive to the restaurant was an unsettling journey. As I ventured deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around me, creating a claustrophobic tunnel of darkness. The only sound was the eerie creaking of branches and the distant howl of what sounded like a wild animal. Upon arrival, Very Very was a stark contrast to its surroundings. A modern, glass structure, it seemed to defy the wilderness around it. Inside, the atmosphere was equally strange. The decor was minimalist with an almost clinical feel. The only sound was the soft, ambient music, creating a sense of isolation. The menu was a work of art, each dish described in poetic terms that hinted at exotic flavors and unusual ingredients. I ordered the chef special, a dish called Forest's Embrace. As I waited, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The silence was punctuated by the occasional clinking of cutlery and the hushed whispers of other diners. When the dish arrived, it was a masterpiece, a complex arrangement of colors and textures. It was both visually stunning and tantalizingly aromatic. The first bite was a revelation. Flavors I had never experienced exploded on my palate, a symphony of taste that was both familiar and alien. As I ate, I noticed strange occurrences. Shadows seemed to shift and dance on the walls, taking on grotesque shapes. The music seemed to grow louder, more insistent, and the tempo quickened. A cold draft swept through the restaurant, despite the sealed windows. Then I heard it, a faint scratching sound, as if something was clawing at the glass. I looked up and my blood ran cold. A face was pressed against the window, a face distorted and inhuman, with eyes that glowed an unnatural red. Panic seized me. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like jelly. The face pressed closer, its features becoming more defined. It was a face full of hunger, a primal, animalistic hunger. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died. The restaurant was plunged into darkness. I could hear the frantic movement of other diners, their gasps and screams echoing through the silence. And then, I heard it again, the scratching sound, closer this time. Something was in the room with me. I could feel its presence, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to seep into my bones. It moved towards me, its breath hot on my neck. I screamed, but the sound was lost in the chaos. Then, darkness. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed. The doctors told me I had suffered a nervous breakdown brought on by stress. They said I had imagined everything, but I knew the truth. I had seen it with my own eyes. The face at the window, the creature in the darkness. I was discharged from the hospital, but I could not escape the memory of Very Very. The restaurant haunted my dreams, a nightmare from which I could not wake. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear the scratching sound, a reminder of the horror that lurks in the shadows. Very Very. The name sends shivers down my spine. A place of exquisite cuisine and unspeakable terror. A place I will never forget, and a place I would never return to. The experience at Very Very had left an indelible mark on me. The doctors insisted it was stress-induced hallucination, but I knew the truth. The terror I had experienced was far too real. Yet, the allure of the unknown pulled me back. There were questions that needed answers. What were those creatures? What was the secret of Very Very? Driven by a strange compulsion, I returned to the forest. The drive was as terrifying as I remembered. The trees seemed to close in, their shadows twisting into grotesque shapes. The restaurant, however, was different. It was abandoned. The glass facade was shattered, the interior exposed to the elements. Inside, the once sleek and modern space was a scene of desolation. Overgrown plants had taken root, their tendrils creeping across the floor. Dust coated everything, creating a ghostly pallor. But it was the strange symbols etched into the walls that truly chilled me. They were intricate, alien designs, pulsating with an eerie energy. I spent hours exploring the ruins, drawn to the symbols. There was something familiar about them, a resonance deep within my soul. The more I looked, the more convinced I became that they held the key to the mystery of Very Very. As the sun began its descent, casting long, ominous shadows, I felt a presence. A cold dread washed over me as I realized I was not alone. The scratching sound, that haunting echo of my terror, filled the air. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned slowly. There, in the dim light, stood a figure, tall and gaunt, with skin as pale as moonlight. Its eyes were black, devoid of any life, but it was the mouth that truly horrified me. A gaping maw, filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. I screamed and ran, my feet pounding against the broken glass. The creature was gaining on me, its inhuman shrieks echoing through the abandoned restaurant. I burst through the shattered front door and into the forest. The creature pursued me, its form a dark silhouette against the fading light. I ran until my legs could carry me no more, collapsing in a heap at the edge of the forest. As darkness enveloped me, I looked back at the restaurant. A single, red light flickered in the distance. It was a beacon, a sinister invitation. Days turned into weeks as I recovered. The physical wounds healed, but the mental scars remained. The image of the creature haunted my dreams, its menacing form a constant companion in my nightmares. Yet, the allure of Very Very persisted. The unanswered questions gnawed at me, driving me to seek out answers. I started researching the history of the area. I visited the local library, poring over old newspapers and historical documents. I found nothing concrete, but I did uncover a series of strange occurrences in the forest over the years. Missing persons, unexplained disappearances, and tales of terrifying creatures. As my research deepened, so did my fear. I was convinced that Very Very was at the heart of it all. The restaurant was not just a place to eat. It was a portal to something dark and sinister, and I was determined to uncover its secrets, no matter the cost. I focused on the area surrounding Very Very. The forest here was denser, the trees taller and more menacing. Strange growths, almost luminescent, clung to the trunks, and a thick fog often obscured the path. The air was heavy with an unseen presence, and the sound of my own heartbeat echoed in the oppressive silence. As I ventured deeper, I discovered a hidden clearing. In its center stood a colossal, ancient oak tree. Its gnarled branches reached towards the sky, their leaves whispering in an eerie language. At the base of the tree, a stone altar was carved into the earth, covered in the same strange symbols as those on the restaurant walls. It pulsed with a sinister energy. I felt an irresistible pull towards the altar. As I approached, the symbols seemed to glow brighter, and a low humming filled the air. A sense of vertigo overcame me, and the world around me began to shift. When my vision cleared, I was no longer in the forest. I stood in a vast, subterranean cavern. The walls were adorned with the same symbols, but here, they were larger, more intricate. In the center of the cavern, a colossal, pulsating sphere of light illuminated the space, and around it, creatures moved. They were human in shape, but their skin was pale and translucent. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their bodies seemed to shimmer. They moved with a haunting grace, their movements synchronized in a mesmerizing dance. Fear and fascination warred within me. I wanted to flee, but an inexplicable force held me captive. As I watched, the creatures began to change. Their bodies elongated, their limbs transformed into grotesque appendages, their faces contorted into masks of pure evil. Then they saw me. Their heads turned in unison, their eyes locking onto mine. A chorus of high-pitched shrieks filled the cavern, and they lunged. I woke with a start, my body drenched in sweat. The dream, or was it a vision, had been so vivid, so terrifying. I was alone in my apartment, the morning sun streaming through the window. But the memory of those creatures lingered, a cold dread settling in my bones. I knew then that I was on the right track. The creatures I had seen were the source of the evil that plagued Very Very. But what were they, and how could they be stopped? The answers lay in the forest, I was certain, and I would find them no matter the cost.